Thursday, May 22nd, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson with you, the All 32 pod, part of any proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Show brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first $5 bet. Prizepicks, run your game. Will and I conversing. What do we want to do today? We're going to have a little fun. We're going to do an offensive rookie of the year draft. I'm borrowing this from one of your guys in Badlands, Connor Rogers, who came up with this idea. I loved it. I want to use it. But before we get to that, let's talk about OTAs. Both the Patriots, Jets, well, a lot of teams, but in particular, Patriots and Jets on the field. I was there for the Patriots on Tuesday. I'm reading up on the Jets. Will, I guess the first thing that jumps out is Will McDonald, who was pretty damn good last year. According to Aaron Glenn, has put on 15 pounds, double-digit sack guy last season. Are we raising the ceiling for him now?
Yeah, Jets have had progressively throughout the process. I think phase one, we're at like 90% attendance, 94% phase two. I guess this is phase three, for whatever that's worth. They were at 100%. Obviously, like a guy like Thomas Morstead was not there, so he counted against it previously. They cut him, him and Greg Zerline, so no harm, no foul there. I would say biggest takeaway is, yes, Will McDonald being 15 pounds heavier. Robert Saleh, I guess, had told Will McDonald in so many words to gain weight. He did not. That's because that's where the Jets defense played under Robert Saleh. Really small defensive line, really hyper athletic, fast, first step, quickness, all that stuff. Aaron Glenn wants his defensive ends to be a little bigger. If you look in New Orleans, look in Detroit, that's the way they've always played defense, right? Those bigger edges. You think of Cam Jordan, Aiden Hutchinson, even, the Marcus Davenports of the world, right? Zadarius Smith. Like, these are guys they've either, traded for or given big deals to or taken in the first round, right? Sean Payton gave up like an arm and a leg to go get Davenport, which he ended up in Detroit with Glenn. So, point being, Will McDonald played last year probably like 230, Mike, which is nuts. To play every snap under Glenn, we looked up a lot of these different percentages. Aiden Hutchinson was playing like high 90% percentage of snaps. Jermaine Johnson was playing like 45, 50% max. Will McDonald, same thing. So, yeah, he's probably 240, 245 right now, maybe a little heavier. Obviously we'll see how that kind of shakes out during camp. Let's say he gets to 250, he'll probably drop down and play around 240. He's not the only one. Sauce Gardner's over 200 pounds, and I can tell you from personal, like, being around him, he's put on muscle for the first time in his career. He looks like an NFL player. I'm not telling you that's going to change. He's not going to turn into Brian Dawkins,
right?
But I think a little bit of a willingness to tackle would go a long way in rounding out his game. Other guys, Quinn Williams looks like he's going to probably play around 300. Like, he's going to play at a heavier size. I think this is all intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, Jermaine Johnson is coming off the Achilles. He posted stuff the other day. He's like 267, 268 pounds. For context, Jermaine was 240 in college and was probably 250-ish 12 months ago. He's as a Pro Bowler. Again, he'll probably play around 255, but I think this is an intentional. We were soft up front. We were not big enough. We got pushed around. We're going to pack on muscle, and like, these guys we're going to hope you're good enough athletes to kind of compensate. So those are the biggest takeaways. The other two takeaways, I'll keep it short and sweet with the Jets. Sauce Gardner's talked about, I want to be a Jet for life. I want to be extended, and that whole thing. We have not heard Garrett Wilson talk. I've talked a million times about it.
Yep.
I feel quite confident in what I know about the situation. They'll both get extended before camp, likely. Garrett Wilson was interviewed publicly, first time since, we saw them leave, after, the Miami game, the infamous Rodgers 500 touchdown that nobody will ever care about that game ever in a million years. Again, Garrett Wilson had talked, all the reports, he was unhappy. He wanted to be traded if Rodgers was back. He came out and said, I want to be a Jet for life. I want to win here. It would make it that much sweeter that, like, we haven't gotten it right, but if we do get it right, and when we get it right, it's going to make it worth it. Him and Quinn Williams echo the same sentiment. Glenn also pretty clearly ripped Quinn Williams for his tweets. After the Rodgers news came out, Quinn kind of
was
a little mouthy, and Glenn was like, that's not going to fly here. And Quinton called himself immature for doing it. Again, a lot of the stuff with the Jets has been these guys haven't talked. The Jets haven't spoken at all. So it was nice to see them. Fields did some nice things. He did some Fields things, took a couple sacks, but also had a couple awesome throws and moved around. Like, it's OTAs and shorts. So I'll keep that short and sweet. I think the biggest takeaways are a bunch of dudes packed on a lot of muscle. We'll see what happens in terms of how that plays out during the season. And the most important, I think, was Garrett Wilson being pretty adamant he wants to be here and that they've had negotiations. And I think an extension for both guys is on the horizon. And look, the Jets had the only second contract guy from 2018 till 2025 was Ashton Davis, Williams. He was the only multi-year extension guy under Joe Douglas, and he wasn't even a Joe Douglas pick. So Michael Carter was the first guy 12 months ago to get a multi-year extension in 7 years or 6 years, Mike, like of draft picks. It's really bad. Jamie and Sherwood got one about 8 weeks ago now. Garrett and Sauce getting them, I think, is a good thing for the franchise. They went a long time without ever retaining their own talent. They always traded or cut by like year 4.
They look, we've talked about this on this pod. They probably should have been a little bit more proactive, particularly when it came to Sauce. Now that, again, the money keeps going up. We're seeing this. We talked about this a ton with Cincinnati and Trey Hendrickson, and the money keeps going up. But this is the position they're in. He's an important player. Obviously,
I think it's important for Patriots fans, right? Because whatever happens with Sauce, this is a very big reflection of next year. If you told me right now, Mike, Sauce gets 5 for 151, wouldn't think twice. And I think that means Gonzalez is probably getting 5 for 155 in 12 months if he has a good enough year.
Yeah, the way it's spiraaling, particularly with the cornerbacks jetting upward as the cap continues to go up.
Man, just ruining the market of every damn position.
It is crazy. We'll transition now. You lead me to Christian Gonzalez and the Patriots OTAs. Gonzalez had 2 interceptions of Drake Maye. Maye threw 4 interceptions over an 8 play period in OTAs and looked like a guy who is learning the offense. Again, last year, different coordinator. This year, Josh McDaniels. He looked like a guy who was thinking a little too much and not playing fast, and that is to be expected. I think we saw this with Drake Maye last year when he came into the program and had to learn the Alex Van Pelt offense, a totally different offense from what he ran in North Carolina, and it was stumbles and bumbles a little bit in May and June, July into August. And then there was a point in August, the final 2 weeks of training camp, where he made his push. Gerard Mayo famously said he's outplayed Jacoby over the last 2 weeks. Then Jacoby proceeds to start the next 5 games. Would not surprise me in the least if we see a similar track for Maye here during the course of the spring and summer before he gets comfortable with the offense and then his natural talents start to fly. I am not one to overreact over 4 interceptions at this time of year. I think talked to a million quarterbacks over this time. Some of it is, hey, you're trying to see, can this guy do that? If I put this ball here, can I fit this in there? Will this guy go get it? And if he goes gets it, Javon Baker made a beautiful back shoulder catch with a perfect throw from Maye. But it was like, okay, he did that. Now I'm curious as they go forward here in the spring and summer, if he tries them again. Hey, he did it again. Like, start to build that trust that he was unable to come up with Drake Maye last year and Javon Baker. So I'm not worried about that part of it at all. I do think that some of the burden here, if it continues to look clunky going forward, will be on McDaniels, because Mike Vrabel told us at the owners' meetings that they were working on simplifying the language. McDaniels' playbook is notoriously huge, and the play calls are very long. And it's impeded some guys' progress in terms of, especially receivers who struggled to sort of so many different options off of this, and they wanted to make it faster, play faster. And Vrabel said, we're going to simplify it a little bit. We talked to Hunter Henry on Tuesday. Hunter said thus far, doesn't appear that he's changed much of anything. But again, very early in the install period here in that regard, but something to watch going forward. Again, if you start to see some of this pop up in August when training camp really gets going, then maybe that's a conversation to have about Josh, and should he shorten things, simplify it, whatever he can to make the offense work for Drake Maye. A couple other points. Gonzalez, talk about looking bigger. Looks bigger to me. A little bit, the guns were there. I mean, not that he was a skinny guy to begin with, but, cornerback, typical. Said he discovered Pilates this offseason.
Yeah,
Yeah, he said it's the hardest thing that he's ever done. But he looked great. I mean, he looks fast. Again, we're talking about in shorts. You don't play football in shorts, but he looked like every bit the player he was last year. Quick, fast, strong, those sorts of things. Christian Barmore, full participant for the entirety of practice. So he continues to recover from the blood clots. When we talked to him a week ago, he said no limitations. He was confident that the blood clots won't come back. He wouldn't tell us why he was confident. We don't know if the doctor said, hey, we figured this out. You're on the right medication now, or you've cut this out of your, whatever the case may be. He didn't give us that, which I would still, I know it's his personal information, but in terms of how I project Christian Barmore, that'd be something I'd like to know, just so that I can say, hey, look, they've got this thing settled, and he's going to be in the middle of that defense next to Milton Williams. Couple other points to make. One, Mike Nwenu, who got paid a lot of money last offseason and then struggled for the better part of the year. And there was some moving around, but really didn't find his game until the last quarter of the season. They don't call him Big Mike for no reason. He's always been a big dude, plays around 350. He looks like he's north of 350, which would be the second year in a row that he's showed up this time of year and looked like he's a little bit heavier. Did not participate in team drills, more of off to the side with Morgan Moses, who's recovering from the knee surgery, and Jared Wilson, the rookie center, third-round pick out of Georgia. And then in terms of the other guy that jumped out to me, the running back, TreVeyon Henderson, moves different. And again, they're in shorts. He's probably not sore yet. You haven't had the contact, but the ability to come out of the backfield, made a nice catch away from his body, had a terrific cutback on a screen play. Like, you see the things that made me very high on him during the draft process, and had a lot of people talking about being a first-round pick, and Patriots end up staying at 38, turned down a couple trades, including 58, 77, and a third-rounder next year to stay and pick TreVeyon Henderson. And at least on this day, TreVeyon Henderson looked awfully good. So that I found that interesting, and we'll have another media availability, I think, on Wednesday of next week. So we'll get to see another practice as they continue to advance here during the OTAs. I talk about Prizepicks all the time because it's a great way to be involved with daily fantasy sports and have a chance to make up to 2,000 times your money. The formula is simple. Just choose two players and up to six, more or less, on their statistics, whether it be points, rebounds, RBIs, hits, whatever, goals scored. You can cross sports, and you can do the basketball playoffs with the NHL, the hockey playoffs, with baseball as well. Jump in if you're feeling like Anthony Edwards is going to start cooking because they didn't look so good in game one against Minnesota. Take a look at those numbers. Decide if you want more or less on Anthony Edwards and those statistics, and maybe you can win yourself some money. As always, only put down what you can afford to lose, because if you won all the time, well, let's face it, we wouldn't be doing this. So anyways, just remember, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first $5 wager. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, now we go to the Offensive Rookie of the Year draft. We will give you 5 players each, alternating picks, so you take that guy off the board. And then we'll add an extra pick at the end. We'll call it a long shot, plus 5,000 or above odds as Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Will, because I'm a generous soul, you are my friend, I say, Will, you get to go first. I'll give you the first pick.
So, I should go Jeanty here. I know I should. And I probably will. But I do want to say, I think I'm going to go Cam Ward. I think this is – all these awards have just become quarterback awards, MVP. I know Offensive Player of the Year has kind of been this guy's really the MVP, but we have to give it to a quarterback award, so we'll give Offensive Player of the Year. I'll go Cam Ward because I think under Brian Callahan – I can see them being a little bit of let's just let F it. Let's let Cam, maybe he'll succeed, maybe he won't. He's irrationally confident. We don't think we're going to break him by letting him go out there. And I could just see him having one of those years where he probably throws 20 picks, but he might throw 35 touchdowns because that's just the way his game is. He's hyper productive. It's a lot of effort. Let's see what happens. I can just see, again, this happens every year where they're going to be a bad team, very likely. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll have a Washington, revival and stuff. But there's a good chance they're a very bad team, which means anytime they're on red zone will likely be a big-time Cam Ward play, which means the people that are voting on these awards generally are not watching every single snap. And while there might be some struggles and these different things, I could just see – I don't know. I could see him putting up big numbers and again, they might go 4-13, but it's like, wow, look what Cam did, and look at these stats, and how many how many touchdowns do you throw rookie year, and the whole thing. So, that's why I'm going to end up.
It's the smart pick. He's the odds-on favorite, obviously, or one of them. When you were talking, it brought me back to last year's conversation where we were talking about Jaden Daniels, I believe was your pick for Rookie of the Year, and it was like, well, they're
same exact thinking.
We were thinking they weren't going to be a good team, right? Turns out that wasn't the case at all. They end up really putting it together and going to the NFC Championship game. But he had such an awesome year, and he was involved in everything. He was the fulcrum of it all. He ran, he threw. He ran a little bit too much early on. We got a little bit worried about his overall health, but he seemed to manage that well as the season went on. And, I could totally see Cam Ward in that same situation. I don't believe they're going to take that same sort of Washington jump, but I could see him putting up some crazy counting numbers. And as we know, to your point, not everybody's watching every single snap. And that could just be one of those cases. He throws for 3,800 yards and 32 touchdowns. Even if he fumbles 6 times and throws 18 interceptions and they win 4 games, he's still going to be Rookie of the Year because the counting stats do matter. Of course, you doing that puts me on the board, and I will take the running back, Ashton Jeanty. And look, not only do I think he's a really good football player, I think we talked about it during the whole process, one of the more flawless, if you will, prospects coming into this draft, one of the guys you felt most confident about, one of the safest picks up in that top 10. I also went back and looked at Pete Carroll's history. And now I said to myself, what's Pete going to do with Chip Kelly, who did an awesome job last year at Ohio State, particularly with the run game?
Yeah.
Yes, they have Geno Smith. Geno is a very good quarterback. We both like Geno probably more than the masses do. But I look back to Pete's time at Seattle with a guy named Marshawn Lynch, who there have been some comparisons to, and being that bell cow type guy. And I just looked at Lynch's first 4 years under Pete Carroll. 1,200 yards, almost 1,600 yards, another 1,257, and then 1,300 in his 4th season. He carried the ball between 280 and 315 times during those 4 years, double-digit TDs every single season. And then I look at what's behind Ashton Jeanty on the depth chart, our lads, as my go-to. Raheem Mostert, who obviously a couple seasons ago scored a ton of touchdowns for Miami, but physically has had a hard time staying healthy. Sincere McCormick and Zamir White. I don't think there's any of those guys that are going to prevent Ashton Jeanty from getting his hands on the football 250 to 275 times in the run game. And as a receiver, that was the other part. As a receiver, 25 to 48 catches during those 4 seasons in between that number for Marshawn Lynch. And I could see Ashton Jeanty falling into that same camp. They're going to need it. They'll get some balance. I just putting this out there on May the 22nd, I sneaky kind of like the direction that they're headed. And they could be one of, we'll see. We'll get a couple more months before we start having to make predictions. But they're a team that I think did pretty well here in the course of the offseason. Yeah. And it starts with Pete Carroll and, as I mentioned, Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah. I'm going to end up going Travis Hunter here. I really don't want to, because I think there's other guys I think could have bigger years. And we'll get to those guys shortly. I thought about maybe going quarterback back-to-back and just saying, like, hey, again, quarterback award in a lot of ways. Look, I think Travis Hunter is going to he has all the storylines. He has the excitement. He'll have the build-up from Jag socials. And again, this, like, people can laugh at this. This is how these things work. It's like the social teams have your back, and then the media has your back. And all of a sudden, it's like you get pushed over certain other guys. So, look, Travis Hunter, I think Liam Cohen will do some creative things. I think I'm really excited to see how he's used, obviously, in these different things. But I feel like you kind of have to take him. And since I went quarterback 1, I'll go Travis Hunter 2. I'll keep it short. There's no reason to spew about Travis Hunter. We talked about him enough.
I would just say, and he was on my list, obviously, as he should be on anybody's list with a brain, but Brian Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington. Those are their top 3 wide receivers on the depth chart, in addition to Hunter. Like, if he gets offense like we think he's capable of getting offense, again, having not really practiced it very much, certainly not in college, where he spent most of his time, 90% of his time on defense, and was basically just hand signaled what to do when he was on the field on offense. Like, I think he could be the best receiver in the draft, and maybe it takes a year or 2 for him to get there, depending on how they utilize him. Again, they're going to let him try the both ways thing to start the campaign. But yeah, I could totally see him going absolutely bananas over the course of time. I'm gonna surprise you here. I'm gonna take a 3rd round draft pick as my number 2 in this offensive rookie of the year draft, and it's RJ Harvey. Of course, now drafted by the Denver Broncos. First of all, I think he's a really good football player. And because of the depth of the draft at running back, I thought he maybe could slide into the 2nd. He ends up, mid to back end of the 3rd. He's already atop the depth chart. They're already talking wonderful things about him. And again, it's only May, I understand. But he has that strength and power, that lower body. He's going to be difficult to tackle, kind of like Jeanty in that regard. And then I look at what Sean did with that offense last year. And sure, Bo Nix should take a step forward in terms of growth, and they'll probably put a little bit more on his plate. But between Javonte Williams, who's no longer with the team, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Audric Estime, they had 319 carries between the 3 of those guys. They're not going to give Harvey 319 carries, but could he be the guy who gets 180 to 200 carries and be their guy down in the red zone? I think he absolutely could be. I just like the player. I think it's a really good fit. I think if he picks up some of the stuff in terms of pass protection, which I think he's a willing participant in, just not necessarily to the level of someone, say, like Trevion Henderson coming out, then he could find himself on the field a lot more than even I'm projecting here at 180 carries or so. And I think he has the potential to have a really, really good season for Sean Payton.
My 3rd pick, I'll go Colston Loveland 3rd.
Ooh.
I just
didn't have him on my list.
I think there's just a lot of not so quiet confidence, I'll call it, bordering on arrogance out of Ben Johnson and this new regime, and that's totally fair. And that's the way. It's a way to be in the NFL, right? Like, I think he has every reason to believe in himself. Very mouthy about the Packers, the tush push. There's been quite a few, has an explosive play. I just think I can see, them saying, hey, we took this guy 10, like, watch what we can do with him. And simply put, maybe in the red zone, does he have like a Laporta-like rookie year? And hey, this class isn't filled with superstar level rookies. And Hunter gets out to a slow start. He's playing defense a lot and takes Ted a little while to go. And like all of a sudden it's like, hey, Cam Ward's not doing well. Colston Loveland has 8 touchdowns in 12 weeks, and the narrative starts to build, and the Bears are on national TV a ton. So I end up going Loveland here 3rd. I don't feel great about it because Bowers had a generational year last year and it didn't matter.
Yep.
But again, I think Loveland's going to put up big time counting stats, and that's always obviously important. Here, national television counting stats is usually a good way to go.
All right, I'm going to go with my one and only quarterback. It's going to be Tayler Shough, 2nd round pick of the New Orleans Saints. I low key think the Saints are going to suck.
Yeah,
I think low key. I think they could be awful, and I think that could be problematic. But I saw enough of him and talked to enough people about him, as we've been talking about him throughout the process leading up to the draft, where I think he's going to win that job over Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener. And I think they're going to ride with him as best they can. There might be some protection issues that, as we know, he's had some physical issues that maybe he can't stand up to. But I think Kellen Moore, they knew that Derek Carr, there was a chance that Derek Carr was going to retire or not be back full strength. And so this was the guy they believed in. They didn't make a move early in the draft for a quarterback. They certainly didn't look at Shedeur Sanders, who many people thought was going to be a 1st round pick. And we, of course, debated it here for a long time. They tabbed him as the next guy. Jackson Dart obviously also went in the 1st round. I think he's due to sit a little bit more, but I think Shough's going to start right away. I think he has the physical talent to put up some numbers if they can protect him. And yeah, I'm curious to see the marriage between a rookie 25, 26-year-old quarterback and a 1st-year head coach in Kellen Moore. But I think Tayler Shough will do some nice things.
I think me and you both like Shough. I worry a bit that the infrastructure is so bad around him that it's going to be really difficult. Really difficult to like put up the necessary numbers. Yeah, 2 more picks here. Man, I don't want to go tight end again. I'm going to go Will Howard.
Ooh,
Instead of going dart, instead of
off
going
the board.
these other ones.
Wait, doesn't this qualify as your long shot?
No, he's only plus 4,000.
Oh,
So
really?
I took him, yeah, which is weird. Milrose is the start of the quarterbacks that have less odds. The reason I went Howard here is twofold. One, we have no idea what's happening with Rodgers. Yesterday he went on a 4-hour tirade on Rogan. If he doesn't play, the Steelers pretty much always are 10-7 or 9-8, which means if you just follow history and let's just say they stay the same, they'll probably be a playoff team. If they're a playoff team, that means their quarterback has to play at least decently well. And I don't believe in Mason Rudolph at all. I think he regressed significantly. I think he showed a couple of moments of potential promises, like a low-end starter, high-end backup. Goes to Tennessee, was terrible. Will Howard's clearly been in a situation where, hey, if you just don't mess it up, and he did that in college, can he do that again in the NFL? I don't know. I just could see a world in which, oh, look, this, the day 3 pick. Look, we got another Brock Purdy. We got another, right. Tom Brady. Here we go. And it's not really, but that's what people might talk themselves into. So I went my team of Cam Ward, Colston Loveland, Travis Hunter, and Will Howard thus far. I don't feel great about it, but I don't hate it.
All right, I'm going to go. I'm going to stick with running backs, and I think there's going to be a platoon system here, which is why I don't have him. I have him 4th on my list and not higher. Quinshon Judkins, Cleveland Browns 2nd round pick 36 overall. He'll be, I assume, in a committee with Jerome Ford, who was there last year and split time with Nick Chubb as the number 1 back. Chubb obviously coming back from the catastrophic knee injury. And then Dylan Sampson, who they drafted later in the draft from Tennessee, who's more of a home run hitter, could be the change of pace guy that they're looking for. But I like Judkins when he was at Ole Miss. I thought he was awesome last year with Trevion Henderson and Ohio State, a real hammer. I think he fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do, and it wouldn't surprise me if he kicked Jerome Ford to the side at some point during the course of the year, whether that's enough to make the push for 1,000+ yards, 10 touchdowns, and the sort of things that would get you, heavy into the rookie of the year conversation. I don't know, but I think he is built for the pro game. I think he's built for that offense. And, I look back last year, their offensive line struggled as well, but Chubb and Ford, 206 carries between the two of them, almost 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. You're telling me Quinshon Judkins with 206 carries couldn't do that for the Cleveland Browns next year? I'd feel pretty good that he could.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish at our top 5. I'm debating, hey, Ted, Golden, and we got Henderson, Ibuka. There's a lot of guys there. I'm gonna settle on Hampton. I haven't taken it back yet. The Chargers are going to run the piss out of the football. The offensive line's good. It's gotten better. Well, I shouldn't say it's good. It's continuing to improve. Year 2 under Harbaugh, I can just see them. Hey, the defense added some more talent. The offense, they've added some talent on both sides of the football. Can they continue to run the football and stay ahead in games? And if they do that, are they going to just? I don't love Hampton as much as everybody else did. I'm not sure I saw a top 12 pick in the draft. Obviously, he didn't go that high, but leading up to it, I feel like I wasn't wowed by him. I thought he was a good player, but at the same time, we saw last year, even there's as long as you can kind of tote the rock a little bit, Jim Harbaugh's going to hand you the football, and if you played for the Ravens, even better. But Dobbins and Edwards and these guys, he's a more talented back than them at this point in their career, and they had success. So. Again, can see Hampton putting up some big numbers. They should be a good football team. I can see them competing for the division. So, again, a lot of national TV, a lot of, hey, oh, look at this 3-touchdown game. And you start to do the whole thing. So, yeah, I'll go Hampton there. So I finished with mine before the long shot I went Cam Ward, Travis Hunter to recap in my first 2. Then, take Will Howard, which was a little bit of a shocker, Colston Loveland, and Omarion Hampton as my final 5 in this draft.
So I have 3 guys on the board here, but I feel really good about all 3 of them. One of these guys is going to get left out, which is probably shameful on our part, but whatever. It's Maye rather. Jaylin Noel, 3rd round pick out of Iowa State to the Houston Texans. You say, Mike, he was the 2nd receiver they drafted. They drafted Jaden Higgins, his teammate, in the 2nd round. Like, how's Jaylin Noel? And you love Jaylin Noel. This is all. Jaylin Noel is going to be taking the role of Tank Dell and Steph Diggs. Play on the inside. Yes, Higgins can do some of that, more of the power slot type thing, but I think Noel is going to quickly work his way into the trust tree with CJ Stroud. New offensive coordinator Nick Caley comes from the Josh McDaniels system, then went over with Sean McVay. Both guys love their slot receivers, found ways to get the ball to their slot receivers. You have Nico demanding double teams on the outside. I think Jaylin Noel could easily catch 65 passes this year and throw himself into the conversation because he has that ability that you didn't see enough of in college with the run after catch, but I believe exists. And with a better quarterback who puts the ball on the spot, he's going to be able to turn upfield and make some things happen. So that was a tough one. The 2 guys that I left off, it hurts me a little bit, but Jaylin Noel, my 5th pick. So Ashton Jeanty, RJ Harvey from Denver, Tyler Shough, the quarterback in New Orleans, Quinshon Judkins, running back from Cleveland, and wide receiver Jaylin Noel from the Houston Texans. All right, give me your long shot.
Crazy you went with a long shot as as one of your picks, but you had to do it.
Yep.
Man, there's so many ones here that there's no way, but that's why they're a long shot. Part of me wants to just go Jack Besh because that's my boy, and you got to do what you got to do. But I guess I will zag for and steal Ron Russillo's coin term. Going just off of DraftKings odds, because he's different odds on either book. Jaden Higgins is plus 6,600. You know what? He's plus 4. I don't want to do that because he's plus 4,000. The other one, I'll go Jack Besh. You took Jeanty. Bowers is going to be awesome. I think Jeanty's going to be awesome. Leaves a lot of room for Jack Besh on number 2 and number 3 corners and on safeties 1-on-1. And we know Gino likes to kind of spam some of that slot guys. Is he kind of that big slot that they play? And does he put up 80 catches? And you're like, whoa, man, look at the story and the whole thing. And you kind of, the Raiders are 9-6 going into week, or 9-7 going into week 18. And Besh got 82 catches. And it's put up this big counting stats here. And there's, again, the story and the whole thing. So purely, I also thought about Milroe. Hey, what if Darnold rolls an ankle for a month and Milroe comes in and it's just
electric? Yeah,
he's just electric. And he's 9 rushing touchdowns in 2 weeks, whatever. I'll go Besh. So again, finishing off my team: Ward, Hunter, Howard, Loveland, Hampton, and my long shot is Jack Besh. And I think he's plus 6,600, which is obviously quite long odds.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a plus 5,000 guy, and Noel obviously was longer than that, but I'm sorry, I'm just jamming him in there. Trey Harris, Ole Miss wide receiver, now with the Chargers. To your point about the Chargers, I think we expected them to add more at the receiver position and give Justin Herbert more help. They did in terms of Omarion Hampton in the backfield, but who's going to be the outside receiver? Could very well be Trey Harris. And Trey Harris doesn't have the deepest route tree profile because my guy Lane Kiffin, I don't know if Lane necessarily gets all his guys ready for the pros. I think he gets them ready for Ole Miss and worries about that and not anything else. But I think Trey Harris potentially could emerge as that outside guy for Justin Herbert. We know, when he had Mike Williams healthy, when he's had some of those other guys out there, Keenan Allen, obviously we're talking about a potential Hall of Famer in Allen, that he utilized those guys quite a bit. He's got Ladd McConkey, and what else? There's a lot of questions about the receiving corps. Maybe Trey Harris can be the guy that emerges quickly, and I feel bad about leaving both of these guys off because they could easily be in it. Trevion Henderson from the Patriots, plus 2,000. I mentioned him during the OTAs, looking good for the Patriots. He'd be someone I'm just interested in because the more you think about drafting a running back at 38, the more you think they might just decide to spam the hell out of him, Ramondre Stevenson or not, And then, of course, Caleb Johnson, who got drafted in the third round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, the running back. But with Najee Harris now with the Chargers, he has an opportunity to compete for that number one job with Jaylen Warren, who's proven to be more of a change of pace guy. So maybe Caleb Johnson has the potential, because we know Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith love to run the football.
Yeah, I like your picks. Yours probably will be some of the most fun rookies to watch. Whether they win or not, who knows? But they're guys I'm looking forward to watching. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good class. I'm never anxious to wish the summer away. I like my downtime. However, camp's going to be fun. Season's going to be fun. A lot of uniform changes, a lot of new faces. You mentioned like Ben Johnson. That's a fascinating story. The swag that he is rolling with right now. Mike Vrabel here in New England, same thing. Aaron Glenn telling everybody to zip it and getting guys to come in and be active here during the course of the offseason, which is a good sign. For those of you listening to the show, before we sign off, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots and league content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. That is going to do it for this edition of the All 32. We will be back again next week. Enjoy your weekend.